Good morning. It's beginning to look a bit like Christmas. The house is full of Amazon, little test batch. Not for sale, so you ask. But I've got 37 Mergy Straight in bottles. And if you remember that little tester IPA that I did to test out the hop combo, there's 37 of those in there as well. So we've got a little beer swap going on tomorrow with the Homebrew boys, and I'll be dishing them out there for critique and hopefully approval. So if that Mergy's worked, the next batch of Mergy that we brew, whenever that will be, when we can crack the ice on the water supply, will be, we'll include multiple bottles of Mergy Straight. So fingers crossed on that. Right, I'm going to get down to the brewery because I need to work out the water situation. There's been a burst in the unit across, and that is where our water supply comes from. So I'm going to mosey on down there now, take a look, see if we can work out when we might be able to brew. Right, we're here. Just been in to say hello to Simon, as his water supply is earlier on the main than ours, and his still frozen solid. They've had a burst, which they've replaced or repaired a section of pipe. I'm just waiting for the ice to melt, so I've definitely got no water in here. So I'm going to have to find something else to do today. Just to give you an idea how cold it is in here still, it's 3 degrees outside. This empty tank is currently 0.3 degrees, and these are still just slightly sub-zero as well. One's got beer in, it's not frozen, just checked it, but it's super cold. So I'm really pleased to see the weather forecast for some slightly warmer temperatures now for the rest of today and tomorrow. By January, by next week, we should be back into positive temperature territory, and then we can crack on. I'm finishing work with the day job on Tuesday, so Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I've got to do basically Christmas shopping and get this beer brewed that we're well behind on now. We should have enough to last us. I've just been checked in the stock. We've got about a dozen of both Mergy and Moston, about 3 or 4 of the oatmeal stout, cross stout left. So that will see us all the regular pubs at least for the next couple of weeks. But unfortunately, any of the other pubs where we're on a less frequent rotation might have to wait a little bit. Just to show you how cold it is in here still. This was a little bit of sanitizer, I think, or water, I'm not sure. Still absolutely frozen solid to the bottom. And if you remember the sanitizer jug that I had, again, not really any signs of that defrosting yet, so we'll get there. Look at that though. Holy ice balls. Speaking of balls, Glen Balls. Your stamped addressed envelope has arrived, and I'll be posting out your request forthwith. Thank you for your interest in our business. Most of you won't know Glen Balls, but if there's anyone in any brewery that watches this, you probably do know Glen Balls. So I've got a delivery here which is just about to go out. I've just taken it out of the not so cold room. That's a cross stout, which I'll be taking over to the King's Lock, so hopefully they'll get that on. The stout went on in the beer emporium last night, and has gone down very well. I hadn't tasted the finished product, so I nipped over, had a quick pint, and I'm very happy with it. So I think some of the other pubs were perhaps waiting for somebody else to put a toe in the water, so fingers crossed we'll get that out on the pumps in the rest of the pubs over the next few days. I've ordered a few bits and bobs. I'd kind of fallen out of love with these things because they were a little bit, I don't know, calibration kept drifting. But basically, if you don't know what these are, as you've probably heard me say, and apologies, some of you will know this already, but when we put the beer in, its density we measure in specific gravity. So we might go in there at 1040, for example, and then we wait for the yeast to do its thing. The sugar is consumed, turned into alcohol, CO2, and then we measure it again. When it reaches a final gravity, there's no more sugar or no more fermentable sugar, very little fermentable sugar for the yeast to work on, and then we're ready to move on to the next stage. But predicting when that is, the point that is dependent on a number of variables. If everything's consistent, temperature, your mash temperature, the fermentation temperature, the amount of yeast that you've pitched, etc., you can pretty well forecast it. But I'm in the tank a little bit longer than I think we need to be. So other than coming down here every day to check the gravity, to work out whether it's finished or not, I need a way to do that remotely, so I'm not here all the time. And that's what these things are. There's a few different versions. There's tilts, which are quite expensive. Tilt works on Bluetooth, so very long battery life. These are called iSpindles, and basically you switch it on, connect it to your Wi-Fi, and then just drop it in, and it will float in the liquid. And as the density of the liquid changes, the angle of this device will change in the water with the float, and it will report back. Once it's stopped changing, I know that the beer is ready and has reached its final gravity. So I bought these off Neil. I'll put his details on the screen now and in the link below. Very good value. He puts them together, and I know quite a few people have bought these from him, and he's sending these out pre-calibrated as well, so I don't have to mess around trying to set them to the start point. They should work as soon as I power them up. We'll do a little test to make sure, and that also will send the temperature as well. I'll show you the little app in another video. So that's going to allow us just to speed up the process at least by a couple of days, I think. As soon as it's ready, we can come down and move it on to the next stage, whether that's to put finings in or rack it. Okay, other stuff what I have bought. You remember the head flew off my mallet ages ago? Well, I never replaced it. We've just been using this blue, don't know what you call that now. I say gravity hammer. I think that's out of a video game, isn't it? Either way, the one with lead shot in. But it's quite small compared with the size of a shive, and I want to hit it square on. So we've got this from Harry Mason's. It's actually quite hard. It's a rubber mallet, but it's quite hard for banging the shives in. And I don't know if I mentioned, I had a little complaint. Not a nasty complaint. She was very nice, actually, from a lady called Heather, one of the neighbours here. And I was in here at, I don't know what it was, 6 o'clock one Saturday morning, 7 a.m. And the way that we get these shives out of the cask, let me get set up and I'll show you. Right, let me show you. So, when we deliver these casks, the pubs can serve them in, or still them in one of two ways. One is like this, not on another cask usually, on some sort of device which will allow them to tilt it to drain. And the point of that is that all of the sediment will settle into the belly of the cask there. And as it becomes more empty, they can angle the cask up because the tap where the beer is coming out of is at the bottom there. So, simple. And that's the original way of doing it. Since then, some other methods which allow them to still them vertically, such as products like cask wedge, for example. So it'll be like that way up on the cellar floor, and they'll drop a float basically through there, and then when the beer is served, the float will descend down on top of the level of the beer all the way down to the bottom, and they'll serve it that way. Certain advantages and disadvantages, and we have pubs that use both, but the majority of them are serving them vertically like this. If they have them in the cellar that way round, as the beer's being drawn out, there's a risk that, well, it won't create a vacuum, but the beer will stop flowing unless you can get some air in behind it, right? So what they do is knock in a peg through the centre. Have I got enough hands to show you? like so. So when they're serving, this peg can come out, and what they do is put a soft wooden peg in there, which will allow a certain amount of air through, but not dusk and, you know, badgers and stuff. And then when they're closing up for the night, they'll put a hard peg back in to seal the hole up, just to stop any further oxygen getting in. Dead simple. But if you're doing it vertically, obviously the beer's going to run out of the hole in the side. So the device that drops in here allows air both in and beer out. A little device that sits in the top there. Most of the pubs are doing it that way. So when the casks come back, we have to remove the keystone, and we have to remove the shive. Now, what we have been doing is this. I've been using this crowbar, basically, and what we've been doing is hammering it about there, and then once it's in all the way, we've been levering it up and out. But it makes a lot of noise. And poor Heather and her fellow across the road, trying to get some sleep at 7 o'clock on a Saturday morning, just had a word and said, "Can you shut up?" In the nicest possible way. And I had no idea the noise was travelling that far, so I felt really guilty. And we've not been hammering early in the morning. I've had to get a bit more organised and take these shives out much later in the day. But I've been thinking, is there a quiet way to do it? And then I saw this from Harry Mason's also, when I was on there the other day, 20 odd quid. And it's basically silent. So, done. How easy is that? So yeah, I'm very, very happy with that. Obviously, some of them will come back with the centre pin intact. I've just got to knock it through, which is almost silent as well. So, sorry Heather, hope that's okay. Come round for a beer one day. Right, next, little trip to the King's Lock. Let's get this cask delivered so they can get this lovely oatmeal stout on.